Hello YouTube. We've got the rear end back from the vendor. It has a spool in it now, but he didn't have the strange seals, so we don't have the seals for the axles. So I'm going to go ahead and put the axle into the car, and I have the seals coming from Strange on Tuesday. We can plumb the brake lines and bleed the brake lines, and maybe by this Saturday the car will move on its own. I've already done a video on putting the rear end in this car, so I'm going to kind of skip through that. Here we go, first step. Under she goes. If only it were that simple. Well, it's in about the right spot. And that didn't take terribly long. It's bolted in. Now we got to put the coilovers in. We have the rear end in the car now, and there are a lot more tasks that have to be done before we can move the car. So what I'm going to do is divide the video into two sections. The first section will be all the things we had to do to make the car so it can move, and the second section will be the car moving by itself, if we can make it do that. And I will put a timestamp at the bottom of the video where you can fast forward to where the car is moving, if you don't want to watch all the little tasks. With the rear axle hanging from the car's suspension and all the jacks and dollies removed, we can go around and tighten up all the bolts, and then we can worry about centering up the axle and the opening of the wheel well. Bolting the rear end in tight is a first. I mean, up until now, it's just been knocked up and finger tight. But now what we're doing is really another first. This has never been done. We're going to bolt the drive shaft up to the rear end. And for the first time in 15 years, this car has a drivetrain from the harmonic balancer to the rear axle. This truly is a first. Engine, transmission, drive shaft, rear end, all ready to go. I did a powertrain angles video a while back, and from that we know we want our pinion angle at 8.5, which is what we have. This is a task that I've been wanting to do, centering the wheel and the wheel opening. Unfortunately, I discovered that this wheel opening is 31 inches wide and the far side is 32. Now this has been fabricated, so that's probably why it's off. This is the short side. So what I'm going to do is center the axle in this wheel well and let that one be off by a ½ an inch. There's a body mount bracket right there. So I'm measuring from the body mount bracket to the top of this lug nut, and it measures 23 inches. And if I measure from the wheel well opening to the nut, that's 16 and a half, and that is 15 and 3/4. With this being 15 and 3/4 and this being 16 and a half, we have too much space here and not enough space here. So what we have to do is move this axle forward. And the way we can do that is by taking these 4 bars and turning them at the same time, the same number of rotations, and take our measurements again. Our final measurement from the bracket on the frame to the center of the lug is 22 5/8. From the center of the lug to the wheel wheel cylinder is 16 3/16. And from the rear to the center of that lug, we also have 16 3/16. So we have this centered in this wheel well when we're 22 3/8 of an inch back from this bracket, and that's what we're going to go do on the other side. With the measurement of 22 5/8, the axle is square to the frame, but not centered in the wheel well. If we measure this, we now have 16 1/8 versus 16 3/4, which means we're off a 1/2 inch towards the front. Now, a 1/2 inch in a wheel well that's an inch bigger than what the other side is means that we have a 1/2 inch in the front, so our space to the tire is going to be the same. We have the axle centered in the wheel well, and now what we want to do is center the axle across the vehicle. And I know, because I've measured it, the other side measures 3 15/16, and this side measures 4 1/2. Now that's about a 1/2 inch difference. So if I take a 1/4 inch out of it, it'll be more centered. So we want to move the axle that way. So if I turn the triangulation bar so that it screws in, it will move the axle that way. After turning it in, it now measures, that's 4 1/8. Let me check the other side. The other side measures 4 1/8 also, so we've got the axle centered side to side in the car. Now we'll tighten the jam nut on the triangulation bar, and the rear end will be centered in the wheel wells and centered side to side on the car. There we go. Now we just got to go do the other side. On to rear axle seals. And the way you take these seals out is there's a retaining plate bolted to the backing plate that holds the axle in place, and you have to take the 4 bolts out. I wouldn't have to be doing these axle seals if I had given the seals to the vendor, because they're kind of special and you just can't get them off the shelf. So this is my fault. The retaining plate just slides off. It's a U shape. And then the axle should slide out. And of course it doesn't. In a case like this where the axle won't come out, it's just stuck, I take the drum and put it on backwards with a couple of lug nuts and use it as a slap hammer to pull that axle out, like so. The backing plate is captured by the axle, so we just pull the whole thing out as one piece. This right here is the groove that the seal goes in. It's just an O-ring. We'll put some oil in that groove on the O-ring and in the axle housing. We'll slide the O-ring into the retainer and slide our axle back in. Now we tighten up our bolts, and the rear axle seal is installed, and we can go to the other side. With the axle seal in place, we can start rebuilding our brakes. And I've done a video on brakes, so I'm not going to detail that. We're just going to go ahead and skip forward to where the brakes are installed. We'll tighten this wheel cylinder in place, and then do the skip like I said. And just like that, we have a full set of brakes that are adjusted, and we can slide the drum out, and we're ready to go. I have the level plug pulled out on the other side and a pan underneath the differential, so when we get to level, it can run out. I take the cap off, and we're putting oil in the rear end, and there's never been oil in the rear end. There we go, we're at level. We'll just let that come out until it stops, and it'll be properly filled. Put our fill cap back on and wipe up the oil. Okay, hopefully we have no leaks. What we have here are the brake lines that we made a while ago. There is a video on it, and we're going to put them in. This is the first step to bleeding the brakes, which has never been done before. Never had brake fluid before. Okay, we have everything finger tight, and we'll tighten up all the connections. We're continuing from the rear to tighten all the brake line fittings so we don't have any leaks. This is the proportioning valve, and I have it wide open now so that it will help us bleed the rear brakes. And we will continue to tighten fittings. We're going to bleed the master cylinder, and what I've got done is taken the brake line and curved it so it goes right back into the bowl, and we're going to fill the bowls with brake fluid. We're using .3 because that's what they said to use in this master. And we'll fill the back bowl. And my wife, the future driver of the vehicle, is going to pump the brakes very slowly so we get all the air out of the master. As you can see the air coming out, and we just keep pumping until we get no more air. We have the master cylinder bled, and now we're going to hook up the brake lines of the car to the master. And we'll try to do it as quickly as possible so we don't get any air in the line. What we're doing here is bleeding the brakes, and if you watch the bottle, you'll see air bubbles come out when my wife pushes the brake pedal down, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, and now we're getting all fluid, so we'll tighten this off and move to the front. What we're doing here is tightening all the subframe bolts. This happens to be the drive shaft loop, and we're just going around and tightening bolts. Some of the bolts I think we should tighten up are the steering bolts. I don't want to get them too tight because I know I've got to remove them again here in the future. So we're going to snug them up, but we're not going to go crazy with them. We'll snug up all the tie rod ends. Again, I won't go too tight because I want to be able to get them apart. And I'd like to be able to get them apart without ruining the boots. The hole's there someplace. There we go. Now that we have the castle nuts and cotter pins in place and the tie rod ends tight, we'll put the little grease fittings in the top. They just screw in. And we'll tighten it down. And we'll shoot some grease into it. What we're going to do here is a quick and dirty front end alignment just to see where we're at. We'd like to have about an 1/8 inch toe in. My wife is going to pick a rib over there and stick the end of the, I got 59 3/4. 59 3/4. Okay, let's move to the back. We've got 60. So with 60 in the back and 59 3/4 in the front, we're toed in just a little much. We'll widen it up so that we're less than 1/8 of an inch.
Okay, you toed in.
Yeah,
Definitely toed in.
Yeah, try that. And if that's too much, we go back 1 turn.
Okay.
Well, I got 59 3/4.
Okay.
Well, I got 59 7/8.
So we're off by,
We're perfect.
oh, we're done.
Yeah.
Okay.
And now that we have the alignment straight, we'll tighten the jam nuts, and that'll keep our alignment. Up until now, I haven't had the body bolted to the frame. I just had bolts drop through the holes, but I think it's appropriate to bolt the body to the frame at this point so that we don't lose the body off the frame when we run around. And I can reach under here and get that bolt. And I'm just going to bolt it loose for now until I get them all in, because I may have to shift the body a little bit. I know the left front is going to be tight. Now that we have all the body bolts in place, finger tight, we'll start tightening them up so we won't lose the body. And we'll move on to the rest. I've made a decision on these shocks. I'm going to take them off. And that's because the mounts are just tack welded in. Here, let me show you. So if you look right there and right down there, that's the only tack welds holding that tower in place. And I'm afraid that driving down the driveway is going to be too much stress on those tacks, and we'll break them off. So we're going to take the shocks right out. This is a gas shock, and I had a heck of a time putting it in. There's a lot of pressure in this shock. If I can get this bottom bolt out, then the shock will swing out and I'll be able to get it out. What I'm going to do is put pressure up on the bottom so to take the pressure off the bolt. Okay, and now I can get the shock out. Ready?
Yeah. I guess I'm not. Hold on.
Although it's not needed, I think we'll put the trunk lid on just for the looks.
Do you want to try this side, or you want to just do one at a time?
Yeah. That's good.
This is still
New-
too tight.
yeah.
This has no gap.
All right. While we were bleeding the brakes, I discovered that I was missing a plug, so I made a temporary plug so we could bleed the brakes. and I ordered a plug from Summit. The plug was $3.15 and handling was like $11. And what we're going to do is take this one out and put the plug in its place. The brake fluid should just pour out of here, and that should keep it the system bled. And that's another small task off the list. We'll have to check to make sure it doesn't leak, but it should be fine. This little task kind of signals that we're getting close to the end here. There's not much on the list. I do want to take a look at the shifter, but putting the tires on certainly says we're getting close. The last task that I want to address, I believe, is this shifter. And it just doesn't shift smooth. So I'm going to take it out, lube it up, and see if we can get it to shift better. See, it gets stuck. But unfortunately, to do that, I had to take this console out, I had to take this floor out. That's because this is through bolted and I can't reach the bolts unless I take the panel out. And that's not a small task, but we're going to do it. We certainly have it tore apart the day before we're going to try to drive it. This is the reverse lockout lever, and this tab is activated by the handle. And if we open up the reverse lockout gate, the handle slides forward, but sometimes it seems to be getting caught on this little knot right there. I'm just going to file it a little bit and try it again. Here we go. That's neutral. That's reverse lockout, and that's sliding forward. Let's put a couple of drops of light oil on it. Try that. That seems to work a lot better. We'll put it back in the car. I think we made some progress on the shifter. My wife, the future driver, is going to demonstrate the shift pattern of this Hurst quick shifter.
Okay, I am in park. Reverse. Neutral. 1, 2, 3. Going back.
And go back.
Second. First. Neutral. Reverse. Park.
And it works. So I think we're ready for tomorrow when we're going to try to make it move. Okay, straighten it out. All right.
That looks about good.
Huh?
Standing there on that 2 feet there.
On the saw if you want it.
I want to do this.
That won't be a problem.
Pull the power in the back.
there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong
Well,
with
we'll do it one more time.
Oh, wait, I brought the power on for you. Hold on.
Almost lost it.
that. Yeah. Tree was that.
Almost lost it.
It's
Yeah,
over
you can-
130 if you can keep it on for more than 3 seconds.
Yep.
So there's donuts and coffee and drinks.
Coffee and water and soda.
I think that was a very successful first test run. We did find a couple little flaws. The brakes are too hard to apply, and that's a function of the bore in the master cylinder. There's a 1-inch bore master cylinder on here, and I think I want to drop it down to 3/4 of an inch. And that'll mean the pedal travels a little bit more, but it'll take less effort to apply the brakes. That's one problem we got to fix. The gas pedal is too close to the brake pedal. I'm going to have to move that over. That's not comfortable. Other than that, boy, she ran cool, never heated up, handled real nice. Steering is going to take some getting used to because it's a truck steering gearbox. I did make a video on that. But all in all, I think we accomplished what we set out to do. And if you enjoyed the video, there'll be more.